illness, aging, and the sweetness of being. I want to start with a memory of my being on retreat. And at the time, this was a long time ago in the UK, I was going on Buddhist meditation retreats. And the teacher in this retreat, Christopher Titmus, was asked by one of the retreatants what he experienced when he was meditating. And Christopher said, in true Christopher fashion, he was quite an interesting man. He said, well, I got stung by a bee this morning. So I sat with my thumb hurting. He didn't say, oh, I was totally blissful even though my thumb was hurting. No, there was something very real about this, that what he was saying was, what was in his awareness as he was sitting was that his thumb was hurting from the bee sting. And, I'm sure there were meditation periods, times when he was very blissful or very expansive in his being. But in that particular one, his thumb was hurting. And so, it's like that with anything that we experience that we don't like, or we don't, it's painful, or it's frustrating, or it's not what we're used to, whether that's illness or whether it's something that's happened that we feel very frustrated about, or whether it's aging. Aging constantly faces us with states that limit us, or things that limit us, bodies that limit us. But the same may be said also for chronic illness. There are moments when we're okay, and there are moments when we're not. And when there's pain and when there's difficulty. So where's the sweetness of being in that? The sweetness is that there can be both. There can be difficulty, and even resistance to the difficulty, and yet even that can be received in a way that doesn't diminish what you also aware of in being alive, which is there's a sweetness in being alive, even if life totally sucks in this moment. It's like that there's really, there's two levels of being. There's the human, condition, however that expresses in the moment. And however frustrating and difficult and painful that may be. And yet there's also this kind of this awareness that even as we're fragile as human beings, being in a body, and bodies not always functioning as we're used to them functioning, or used to be used to them functioning. And all of this is happening. And yet it's not all that's happening. There's being in which this is held, that this is received. And this being is really quite sweet, and it's not touched. It's not touched by the humanness of these states. It's not even touched by the resistance to those states, It's just that openness to whatever it is that's happening. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, you don't need to be blissfully unaware of the pain. That's not needed, no, because you're human, you will be aware of the pain. And yet, there can be a sweet embrace of that, receiving of that. And maybe it's not sweet in that moment. Maybe it's just very factual. But even that factual receiving of it has a sweetness to it. It's like a bowing to it. Yes, here I am. I'm hurting today. My body's hurting. My mind's racing. My heart feels broken. All of that. And yet here you are. You're still here. You're still here. And that is sweet in itself.